This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Parshas Kedoshim. Daber el kol adas b'nei Yisrael. Speak to the congregation of the Jewish people. V'yamarta aleihem. Say to them, Kedoshim to you. You shall be holy. Ki kadosh ani Hashem lekeichem. For I, God, am holy. Says Rashi. Very interesting expression the Torah uses. Daber el kol adas b'nei Yisrael. It doesn't say Daber el b'nei Yisrael. Right? By tzitzis. Vayim Hashem Moshe leimar. Daber el b'nei Yisrael. Why here is it Daber el kol adas b'nei Yisrael? Says Rashi, Melamed shenemra Parshazu b'hakel. This teaches us that this parsha was said in the assembly with the gathering of the entirety of the Jewish people. And the question that we have to ask ourselves is, why was it so important? If other mitzvos, it wasn't necessary to stress everyone must be there, even though they were mitzvos of the greatest importance. And yet, when it comes to Parshas Kedoshim, Moshe stresses, Rebbeinu Shalom stresses, make sure every last Jew shows up.
Rashi says why.
So,
Rashi explains because let him finish.
Very interesting. There's a tshuva written in the Igros Moshe, dated Yud Ches Elul Tafshin Lamed Vav. What year is that? 1976. From Rabbi Kellemer in Boston. And the question is, very interesting question, Bidvar Hanoshim Hasha'ananois V'Hachashuvos, regarding the women. Now, Rabbi Moshe very respectfully, politely calls them Chashuvos, very important women. The word Sha'ananois is not necessarily a compliment. Sha'ananois, literally it means tranquil, peaceful, but it means smug. Arrogantly confident. That's what the word sha'ananis means. Asher ben yonei hanhogas hamadinas ba'olam hein gam kein mehaloy chamois yachad im atnua kazu im hanoshim haloy chamois bezem mikol ha'amim shaba'olam. These women are part of the worldwide feminist movement, which may have some redeeming qualities, and that is to give women greater honor and greater dignity, and to protect their human rights, which is a very worthy cause. But they want to move that movement and move that notion into the world of Judaism, into the world of halacha. Aval nashim elu shehin shomros Torah. These observant women, rotzos lahachnes milchamtam, they want to give an entrance to their war, gam b'machnegel lekama dinei Torah, and to many Torah laws. Many of them, they want to start davening with a prayer shawl, the chadaima. Maybe wear tefillin. Maybe have a separate section at the wall where they could pray with a minyan together with secular Jews. What was
the specific shiloh?
He's explaining. And Rabbi Kellemer would like me to express my opinion. Rav Moshe says, Be'etzem hadavar, regarding this attitude, regarding this movement, does it have basis? Is it valid? Especially in terms of its standing in the world of halacha. And Rav Moshe begins by saying that it is one of the tenets of emunah that our entire Torah, whether it's Torah Shebechsav, whether it's Torah Shebal Peh, was given from God on Har Sinai through Moshe Rabbeinu. We cannot change anything. We can't change Torah Shebechsav. We can't change Torah Shebal Peh. However, it's the Chachamim were given license in order to make siyagim, in order to make gedarim, to make takanos, in order to uphold the drabanos, uphold the deraisas. However, says Rav Moshe, that 8 lines down, from the time of the Galus, les lanu koyach zeh, we don't have anymore the ability to make takanos and gedarim that stand the test of time. But every generation, the Chacham have a right temporarily to set forth certain laws and takanos for each generation's need. And therefore, says Rav Moshe, the concept that a woman is exempt from time-governed mitzvos, this is not man-made, this is not made up, this is from the Torah, Mamela. Zeh sheha-Torah patra mi-mitzvahs aseh shazman grama hu min ha-Torah. The Torah says you patra. Did the Chachamim obligate a woman in these mitzvahs? Did the Chachamim say, women, you have to say Kriya Shema B'zmanoi? No. The Gan Rabban lo chivam. Why not? The Rabbanan, the Chachamim, did not feel there's any need to obligate women in these mitzvahs. Says Moshe, Adirabba, Mashma, Shahat Sarechu Lepoitran. If the Torah didn't obligate them, and the Chachamim didn't obligate them, that means the Torah and the Chachamim feel they shouldn't necessarily be doing them. For whatever reason, God exempted them. So then Hashem's not saying, you know what, you're exempt, but it's a nice... No, just the opposite. Says Rav Moshe, why are women exempt from time-governed mitzvos? Besides that, the fact that the Torah has reasons that people don't know. Even great sages don't know the reasons. We have to have emunah that why did God exempt women from mitzvos? God has such good reasons, logical reasons why women are exempt. But says Rav Moshe, besides the reasons that God has that we are not aware of, there are very obvious and apparent reasons why women are exempt from governed mitzvahs. Gam ta'amim gluyim l'kal. You know why? Stam nashim ba'olam eidam ashiros. Most women are not wealthy.
Hello?
No.
Most women in the world, Rabbi say, are not wealthy, and they can't afford a nanny and a separate cook and a separate housekeeper. It is upon the woman to take care of the children. If you want to know, if you ask God, in your eyes, Hashem, what is the most cherished, noble activity there is? Bringing up children, childbearing. So you'll say, let the man do it? No, Hashem said, I created the woman with the intuition and with the character and with the nurturing ability to bring up children. Look in nature. The father bird brings up the children. The lion, father lion. No, the mother is the gender. The mother is the one who God has created in a way who's suitable for this great task. God created in the nature of every species the balechayim. You don't find the father raising the children. And men, humans are no exception. Can't deny the fact that the woman's nature is more suitable for raising children, right? The father gets a kid dressed, so he's taking the shirt. He's yanking the shirt over the kid's head, he's pulling the kid. The mother knows how to do it, shefala, he does it in a gentle way. The mother knows. That's how God created a woman to be able to do this, right? And therefore, says Rav Moshe, even though God has many, many obvious reasons that only He knows about, but the apparent reason is, and that is, that's why women are exempt from learning Torah because they have a very important task in life to take care of. Says Moshe, even if life changes and women go to work and they're wealthy and they could afford nannies and they could afford housekeepers and they could afford cooks, which is probably not the ideal situation, and even if they want to give over their children to be raised by other nationalities, we have no ability to change one iota of the Torah. Okay? And to say that we in this generation could come along and say, well, now that we're in America, now women are chayiv in these mitzvos, it's apikarsis. It's heresy. It's heresy to say that anything of the Torah changes based on the times. And then Rav Moshe says further, look in the next paragraph, Ibra, however, Ika Reshus L'chol Isha L'kayim Af HaMitzvah Shaloi Chiyavtim Torah. If a woman wants, she has permission to fulfill mitzvos that the Torah exempted her from. V'yesh lahem mitzvah, she'll get a mitzvah if she performs it. V'schar al kiyam mitzvos, and she'll be rewarded. Right? And according to Taisus Shita, she could even make a bracha on a mitzvah, even though she's not required to do the mitzvah. That's why a woman, she takes a luv and esuk, she makes asher kedeshanu. A woman sits in the sukkah, she'll make a bracha, even though she's not required to. That is why if she wants to wear tzitzis, what? He said Taisus, right? The Ashkenazim passing like Taisus, that women could make a bracha on a mitzvah that they're not mechuyavos in. And even on tzitzis, if she wanted to wear it. Now, if she couldn't wear the same type of tzitzis we wear, because why not?
Wearing
it's men's clothing. It's begedish. But if she wanted to get a nice pink furry pair of tzitzis, she could do it. And she could make a bracha, and she'll be rewarded for it. What about tefillin? So we have over here, Rav Moshe quotes, Taisus in Masechta Eruvin, on Daf Tzadik Vav Amud Aleph, number 5 on your sheets. Taisus says, women are exempt from tefillin. Women, if a woman puts on tefillin, you have to be moicha. Be moicha, you have to stop her, you have to protest, you have to give her rebuke. Why not? Because Taisus says, in order to wear tefillin, you have to have a clean body and a clean mind. And so the question is, what about women? What about women? They can't do that. So the Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah Paskins, and Siman Lamed Ches, Im Nashim Reitzim Lahachmer La'atzman, if women want to be machmer and wear tefillin, Meichin B'yadam, we scream out, we protest. Why? Why do we protest? I mean, if men are allowed to wear tefillin, and we could trust men with having a clean body, what about women? So the politically correct way of saying it is the way the Aruch HaShulchan says it. And that is, women could be just as careful as men. Look at number 8. 2 lines from the end in the first right-hand side. So the Aruch HaShulchan says it in a very sensitive way, and that is like this. It's taka true, it's not easy to wear tefillin. That's why in the times of the Gemara, how long do they wear tefillin for? All day long. But nowadays we don't wear tefillin all day long. Why not? Because we can't guard ourselves to make sure that we don't have certain physical phenomena that are antithetical to the wearing of tefillin. That's why we only wear it for Kriya Shema and Shemona Esrei, right, and the Bercha and the Tefillah. So like this, the Aruch HaShulchan says, really, maybe we shouldn't wear tefillin at all, but we have to. It's a mitzvah d'oraisa, so we're obligated. So women who are not obligated are not allowed to take the chance. A woman who has no obligation to wear tefillin is not allowed to take the chance. But a man, he has to do his best. Since he's obligated to wear tefillin, he has to take the chance. But that's not what Tosfos says, by the way. I just point out, Tosfos says there's a concept that women are not zrizim, and they can't be zaras li zahir. So, no, I don't suggest necessarily going
Does
to...
anybody agree that a woman can put on tefillin?
Can?
Yes.
No. Halacha, no. Nobody, everybody says, woman who puts on tefillin, you have to protest.
Even if she made up her mind that she's going to put on tefillin every day?
Correct. That's what the Ramav says in the Shulchan Aruch. That a woman who wants to put on tefillin, you're
The
meicha.
question is, Micha Bashom was wearing tefillin.
So the Rashi's daughters.
So the Aruch HaShulchan says, either you have to say that the Chachamim knew specifically about her, that she was a tzaddikus, and she was Yodea li Zahar, but nowadays, if a woman wants to put on tefillin, she could be the biggest rebbitzin, bake the most challah with the biggest key inside, doesn't matter, you protest.
How come the Rashi's daughters didn't wear tefillin?
Look, Rashi's daughters were before the codification of the Shulchan Aruch. Once the Shulchan Aruch is codified, it's signed, sealed, and delivered. That is the halacha psuka.
Okay.
Yeah, so was there in history? Well, the Gemara in Eruvin talks about Micha Bashal, whether the Chachamim were Moicha, were they not Moicha, were they correct in not being Moicha, were they correct in being Moicha. Bottom line is, halacha l'maiser, Moshe says, we paskin like Tosfos, that you have to be Moicha. By the way, there's a more strict opinion that we don't paskin like. We're saying really if a woman theoretically put on tefillin, it could be a mitzvah. It's just we don't let her because you need a guf naki. Targum Yonason Ben Uziel says in number 10, explicitly, that for a woman to wear tzitzis and tefillin, it's man's clothing. It's a lav d'oraisa. So we don't paskin like that, Targum Yonason Ben Uziel. We paskin, no, if a woman wanted to get her own pink pair of tzitzis with, nice little cotton balls and tassels on it, matching her pocketbook, no problem. She could, the only thing is, you need a tzrichen li zahar, and therefore we're meicha. Okay, so Rav Moshe says, now what does this have to do with Parshas Kedoshim? Says Rav Moshe, look at still in the paragraph Ibra, about 5 lines from the end of that paragraph. Says Rav Moshe, if a woman sits in a sukkah, Is it a mitzvah? We just said yes. Says Rav Moshe, not automatically. It depends why she's doing it. If she's doing it because she wants to do a mitzvah, then it's a mitzvah. But if she's doing it because she wants to say, the men could do it, so I also want to do it, then not only is it not a mitzvah, not only is it not Aveira, it's kfira in the Torah. If the only reason she's doing it is because of feelings of empowerment, feelings of equality, says Rav Moshe Feinstein, Avo pashut shurak b'chashka nafsha l'kayem mitzvos av k'shalei netztabas. That's only if she on her own wants to do the mitzvah because Hashem commanded her. But if she's getting together with other ladies to do the mitzvah, what does she need other ladies for? If it's a statement of we could also, then it's a statement of heresy. What do you mean you could also? You think that you need to speak out against what the Gemara sets forth, that women are exempt? I could also, feelings of empowerment, says Moshe, that's not just sinful, that's heretical. Parshas Shurak b'chashka nafsha k'ayim mitzvah k'shalei netzabasa. Avo mikivon she'eno l'kavanazu. These women who want to make minyanim, or who want to take out the Sefer Torah and Simchas Torah, they're not doing it, says Moshe, because they want to come closer to Hashem. They're doing it because they want to be equal to men. Ela mitzad Torah musal Hashem mitzvah. They have tightness to God. God, why could only the men take out the Torah to dance with? The Al Torah say, Ein ze ma'aseh mitzvah klal. This is not an act of mitzvah observance. Ela adarabah ma'aseh iser. Sheha iser de kfira. It stems from disbelief in the Torah. Shechosheves, the Shayach, Shehiyah, Eza, Chila, B'dina. They think that in 20th century, 21st century, we could change things. It used to be in Europe, only men took out Torahs. Nowadays, even women could take out Torahs. It used to be only men had minyanim. Nowadays, women also have minyanim. So if that's where it's coming from, and how does Rav Moshe know that's where it's coming from? Maybe it's coming from a genuine desire to come close to God. Why isn't he dan l'kavschos? So there's a very important book that I recommend that you take a look at, from Rabbi Aaron Feldman, Rosh Yeshiva of Ner Yisrael. And he tackles a lot of modern contemporary issues, the most controversial issues of the times. And he writes, probably explaining where Rav Moshe is coming from. And that is, let's take an honest look at these movements, right? We see, you read the news today, they're trying to open a section of the Kotel for women's prayer groups. Is it possible? Is it not possible that they really have a genuine desire to come close to God? After all, women these days are more educated, they're perhaps more sophisticated, and that creates a certain spiritual awareness, and they want to express it. So says Rabbi Aaron Feldman, I have a question for these women. Why is it that this expression of coming close to God is only expressed in those avenues that men do and they don't do? In other words, why is it that it's only the things that men do they want to do? Why don't we find they get together and try to strengthen themselves in the laws of Yichud, or in strengthen themselves in the laws of Tznius, or in strengthen themselves in avoiding mixed swimming, or other forbidden interactions with men, or strengthening themselves to make sure they're making brachos with kavanah? Why is it that these movements are only interested in those things that men do and they don't do? Why is it that these movements are only interested in public things and not private things? Is it not clear that it's not a matter of spiritual awakening, it's a matter of political statement? That is, we want to be empowered like men. That's where Rav Moshe is coming from. You look what he writes, very powerful. Let's consider, if these groups were founded for reasons of heightened spirituality, why would the focus of interest be always toward mitzvos which are obligatory for men, but optional for women? Why only towards public mitzvos? Reciting blessings with kavanah, accepting stringent kashrut standards, avoiding yichud, acting with modesty in dress, hair covering and deportment, avoiding mixed swimming. Why is it when it comes to hair covering, they're looking for loopholes, and when it comes to things they're not obligated in, that they're interested in? It's just the opposite. It's completely the opposite. Why wouldn't they be more interested in, let's say, tznius and covering hair, which are d'oraisa? Why would they be interested in minyan, which is not a d'oraisa? And even more.
What about Lima Torah?
Lima Torah? If all they were interested in Lima Torah, it would be what we call, not even not as bad. But now that would be a matter of halacha. What parts of the Torah are women allowed to learn? What parts of the Torah are not allowed to learn? Are women allowed to learn Torah Shabbat Peh? So that requires a shiur in and of itself. We know Rav Moshe wrote a tshuva that women should not learn Torah Shabbat Peh. Only those items that awaken Musar and ethical behavior, but not Gemara. That was Rav Moshe's opinion in the tshuva to Rav Elias Svei. Okay, but what we're learning here is that why is it that these groups are trying to undermine the traditional role of woman as wife, mother, akeres habayis? Traditional Jewry values, cherishes the fact that the woman is the cornerstone of the home. Why is it that these movements are trying to undermine that? They're trying to undermine the family, which is the yesod of Judaism. Why is it that a corollary to these groups is the undermining of the wife as nurturer, giving her more career advancement at the expense of her mishpacha? So that's where Rav Moshe is coming from. Now, I once heard, from Rav Moshe Chait, he was a Rosh Yeshiva of Chafetz Chaim in Eretz Yisrael. So he said like this, a woman was created to be Ezer Kenegdai. A woman wants to help her husband achieve greatness and ruchnius. So what's with the feminist movement? If they recognize that there's a lack of ruchnius on the part of the ish, then she says, if you're not going to learn and daven properly, so then I might as well do it. Perhaps it's a shortcoming on the men, that they're not taking their role serious enough. They're not bringing genuine Torah and tefillah into their homes. Perhaps the women say, well, if you're not going to do your job, maybe someone else has to do it. That's also something that's important to think about. So again, Rabbi said, what does this have to do with Parshas Kedoshim? And that is, says Rav Moshe, the first thing we need to explain to the women is that the reason why they're exempt from these mitzvos, or the reason why they have a different role, is not because of any lacking on their part. It's not because they're looked down on from the Torah or the Rebbeinu Shalom. It's just the opposite. Because says Rav Moshe in beautiful words, V'shenis, tzarich ladas. The second thing is, they need to know. Ki ein zeh b'shvil shenashim pchusais b'madregas ha-kedusha me'anashim. It's not because women are any less than men. Dila'inyan ha-kedusha shavai. If we were to ask, who is holier, men or women? The answer is, they're equal. In terms of their relevance to mitzvos, women have just as much kedusha as men to be able to lichayv in mitzvos. In other words, why are women exempt from mitzvos? Is it because they have less kedusha? No, it's not because they have less kedusha. They have the same kedusha as men have in terms of being chayv in mitzvos. Rak mitzad ha-kedusha de'ika b'Yisrael hu tzivah mitzvos. God commands mitzvos to the Jewish people because of their inherent sanctity. V'gam le'noshim nemru kol akroi de kedusha. All the psukim of kedusha in the Torah were said to women. Right in the beginning of the Torah, the beginning of Kabbalah Torah, it says, "V'atem tiyuli mamlechas kaihanim v'goy kadosh." Who is that directed at? Only the men? Everybody. God told women, "You're a goy kadosh." In fact, God put the women first. When Hashem is saying to the Jewish people, "You are holy," He told the woman first. In Mishpatim, "Ba'anshe kodesh tiyun li." Parsha Shmini, "V'yisem kedoshim," to the women. Parshas Kedoshim, "Daber el kol adas b'nei Yisrael," to the women. So what we would like to suggest is, why was this Parsha said b'hakel? Hashem said, don't just invite the men. The concept of kedusha is for all of Klal Yisrael. No one has more, no one has less. Yes, a kohen. Do I have tarumas on Moshe? God, I want the first aliyah. I want a duchen. No, gvul yesh ba'olam. There's certain boundaries in this world. Only a kohen gets the first aliyah. Only a kohen duchens. Only a Levi gets the second aliyah. So I don't have complaints against the kohanim. So they're different roles, the different classes. But in terms of the inherent kedusha, men, women, when a woman makes a bracha, does she say asher kedushana b'mitzvaysav? Absolutely. Like men. Does a man have to honor his wife any less than his wife has to honor him? No, actually he has to honor her more. Right? If anything, before the Torah, women were violated, women were stepped upon, women had no rights, women were treated as second-class citizens. The Torah is what gives the rights and the liberties and the value to the woman. The Torah says a man has to honor his wife. Many women were nevios, many women have the status of nevuah. Many women are praised in things more than men. Says Rav Moshe, like a shum zilza b'chvaydan, we are not diminishing their honor. We are giving them a more important role. The role of Ezer Kenegdoi, the role of Akaras Habayis, the role of bringing up the next generation, the role of creating Am Yisrael. Is that something small in the eyes of Hashem?
It seems that mashma from Rav Moshe that if a woman raising a child, she's patur. But a woman who isn't married yet, or somebody who's past the age of raising, with children out of the house.
Oh.
So then you would be chayav.
What Rav Moshe is saying is like this. Rav Moshe started off by saying, there are many, many reasons why God feels that women are exempt from these mitzvos. That we don't know what they are. They're beyond our comprehension. But we have to trust God understands what these reasons are, and they're very logical and very apparent to Him. But Rav Moshe adds, there is a very significant reason that we could relate to. But without that reason, that's not the main reason why women are exempt is not because they're raising children. That's just something we could relate to. You know what the main reason is? The same way, do I understand why I can't go into the temple and do the service? Why I can't go into the basement? Do I understand why I can't duchen? I can also move my fingers that way. What do I have? I don't have the Kohen DNA? Who cares? The answer is, Kach Goizrani Habayre. That's what God decreed. Same way we don't have kindness against Kaihanim, we don't have the Nashim. And so some women may say, but when I get together with the women's prayer group, I feel an intense religious experience. I feel spiritually uplifted. So the first thing we have to know about mitzvos is mitzvos are not to lift us up spiritually. If you shook your lulav and esrog, whether you had an intense religious experience or you had no experience at all, it matters almost little. The mitzvah is the maisa, the mitzvah is not your fuzzy feelings. Sefer HaChinuch tells us an important thing. Rav Nachman Breslov said, you have all these Jews, I'm a good Jew at heart. So in Olam Haba, there's a big meat locker. With the meat locker, they're hooks. And all the good Jewish hearts are stuck onto the hooks. That's where all the good Jewish hearts are going to go. Mitzvos, Judaism is not about good feelings. Sefer HaChinuch asks, why do we have so many mitzvos, remembering what Hashem did to us in Mitzrayim? Why isn't one enough? We have to have Kiddush, and Shabbos, and Yom Tif, and Tefillin, and Tzitzis. Says the Sefer HaChinuch, the principle is, Adam nifal kafi pu'ulaisav. This is a mitzvah tezayin in number 4 on the sheets. The Sefer HaChinuch writes about this at length. That Hashem is not interested as much in our thoughts as in our actions. Why not? He says like this: you can have a guy, he's rotten to the core. He has every bad thought in the world. He's inside he's terrible. He starts acting and doing the mitzvos, following all the mitzvos in the Torah. It will change his inside. He'll become good on the inside. Because a person's Adam nifal kafi pu'ulaisav hamachshava nimsheches achar hadibor. Says the Sefer HaChinuch about in the 8th line in number 4, Da ki Adam nifal kafi pu'ulaisav ve'libai v'chol machshavoisav tamid achar ma'asav. So Hashem gave us so many mitzvahs because the Sefer HaChinuch says you could have a guy that says I'm good, I have such a good heart and I'm so kind-hearted and this and that. If he's not going to do mitzvahs, he will turn rotten. How quickly? Immediately. And you can have a guy who's rotten on the inside. Once he starts doing the mitzvahs, mitar shaloi lishma balishma. So when we come to mitzvah observance, the first criteria is not your kavana. The first criteria is, are you going to do it correctly? So I have a question for you. 10 women together. Does it have any halachic significance? None whatsoever. It's not a minyan. Women cannot create a minyan. V'nekdashi b'sev nesa. But they'll say, but when I sit in the shul behind the mechitza, I just don't feel, I can't express myself. I feel much greater religious experience when I get together with women. We say to the women, your religious experience is not what is valued to God. What is valued is the act. You cannot forego action at the expense of religious experience. And then there's a famous story that we need to bear in mind. There's somebody once came to Rav Soloveitchik, and says, Rav, I would love to wear tzitzis. I feel... Right, a woman, thank you, came to Soloveitchik. And, Rav, I would really feel so deeply connected to my Creator if I was able to wear the four-cornered garment, the fringes. So Soloveitchik said, okay, but you can't do it all at once. Yeah. So first put on a four-cornered garment without the strings and come back in a week. So she comes back in a week. By the way, we have the story on the sheet even. Number 14. She comes back in a week and she says, he says, no, how do you feel? Oh, I was spiritually uplifted. I was connected to my Creator. It was such an uplifting experience. So Rabbi Soloveitchik said, you can't put on tzitzis because your religious experience is delusional. Because if you'd be a man, you'd be mavatel mitzvos aseh. So before we really give heed to what some parties are saying that it gives them a deeper connection, let's ask them, is this really a deep religious experience or is it delusional? Is it just a political statement? Rabbi Feldman writes, number 15, number 16, look what he writes. He says, it is obvious to all that the Torah's view of life in general and of women in particular is different from the feminist view. The Torah assigns different roles. A woman's role as mother is praised. As for her spousal role, in her very creation, she's described as an Ezer Kenegdai, complementary to her husband. And therefore, in the Torah's view, marriage, motherhood, wifehood, the basis of the family, are to be encouraged as a center to Jewish life, even at the expense of other worldly pursuits. So if certain movements are interested in prayer groups at the expense of family size, that's a very big clue where they're coming from.
Why they have to observe continuously if they first start. If they start to observe the mitzvos, if a woman starts to observe mitzvos, she has to continue observing for the rest of her life. She can't...
That's not just for women, for men also. If a man takes a good practice 3 times, it has the status of an eder. If a woman wants to be mater neder, she can mater neder. But if you want to know, should we encourage women to go have extra Torah study or to be more devoted to the family? The Rebbeinu Shalom told us in the Torah the roles of each respective group. Now, a woman who on her own has certain spiritual desires that she's able to express in a modest way, so they could be commended and they're valued. But we have to understand the true Torah perspective on what we value for a woman. And then Rav Moshe, it's very interesting. I want to tell you.
Go far.
Yeah.
Just from the Seder night, we say At Pesachloi, when Shene Delish. At means why don't you Ato? You should open your mouth and tell the child what to do. At is the woman. The woman's job is to mold the child in order that the child should know the derech he should go on.
Correct, right? David HaMelech says, Ani avdecha ben amasecha.
Number 19.
Yeah.
It says,
so number 19, number 20, I left that on the sheet for your own thought, and that is, there is a Mishnah that says a man takes precedence over a woman in terms of saving life. And the Rambam says that the reason is because men have more mitzvos, but other Mefarshim say more explicitly that men have more kedusha. Rabbi, so what that means is that against what Rav Moshe is saying that in terms of kedusha we're all equal? No. Does a Kohen have more kedusha than a regular Yisrael? He may have an element of kedusha that I don't have. I'm not a Kohen. Do I agree? Does a Kohen have a certain element of kedusha? Of course, the Torah says so. V'kidashtai. But in terms of the basic kedusha of a yid, is a Kohen more a yid than a Yisrael? No, of course not. Is a man more a yid than an isha? Of course not. So in terms of kedushas Yisrael, we're all equal. Now there's certain types of kedusha. A Kohen has certain kedusha, but we know a mamzer Talmid Chacham is more kedusha than a Kohen Ha'aretz. So while a Kohen has kedusha, the real kedusha is midos tovos yer shamayim and limud Torah. A woman who acts b'yira, b'midos tovos, as an Ezer Kenegdai, and brings up a mishpacha, she will be standing right next to her Ezer in Gan Eden, not any higher, not any lower.
If she has to go out
See, the women have a time.
the husband is learning, right?
Yeah.
This takes away the time from her being able to do the primary responsibility of raising the child. Isn't that a conflict?
That is a serious issue that is something that has to be discussed and weighed very seriously.
Well, if she's not married, she has no age to do.
So there are a lot of, the Chavos HaVava says there are many wonderful things that all people could accomplish in this world, but in general, even people who are limited by circumstances, there are many accomplishments they could have in this world, whether it's in the realm of chesed or in helping people, but in general, to the movement, the feminist movement, as it moves its way into the Torah world, is poison. And it may start off innocuous, but what we have to understand is where it's headed. And you see where it's headed from the extreme of it. But let's end with the following. Rabbi Glatstein. One second. In Parshas Bahaloischa, Parak Ches Pasuk Yotes, there's a pasuk that says like this: Va'etnas haLevim nesunim li'Aaron u'Levanav. I have given the Levium to Aaron and his children, mitach b'nei Yisrael, es avodas b'nei Yisrael, v'ayomay l'chaper b'nei Yisrael, v'lo yeh b'nei Yisrael nega b'nei Yisrael akadeh. Which word appears many, many times? B'nei Yisrael. Rashi, in fact, points out 5 times to tell me that Hashem loves B'nei Yisrael like the 5 books of Moses, like the Chamisha Chumsei Torah. So if Levi Yitzchak Barditchev asks, Shkoyach, what does that got to do with the price of tea in China? We're talking about the Levim being given over as elite. Why is God telling me, why doesn't he start off Bereshis, Bar Lekim Lebnei Yisrael, Es Hashemayim Lebnei Yisrael, Ve'es Lebnei Yisrael, Ha'aretz Lebnei Yisrael, B'nei Yisrael? Why in middle, Min Drinnen, Parshas Bahaloischa, by the Levim, it says B'nei Yisrael 5 times? Says Rav Levi Yitzchak Barditchev, beautiful. God has just selected the Levim to do certain avodah in the Beis HaMikdash, to be elite, lest you think, God selects Levim, he must love them more, he must value them more, they must be greater in his eyes. No, Hashem says, I selected the Levim. But you want to know about the chiba that I have to every Jew? B'nei Yisrael, B'nei Yisrael, B'nei Yisrael, B'nei Yisrael, B'nei Yisrael. I love every Jew. Ish, Isha, Kayin, Levi, Yisrael, Kulam, Shkulam, Lefnei, B'Ribban Shalom. Says Rav Moshe Feinstein, this is not a matter of lack of honoring the women. Because, look, this is a number 24. In the latest volume of the Igros, Moshe Chelek Tes, all the way at the end of the Sefer, he has new letters of Hashkafa, Siman Hey. He writes like this. This is talking about educating women in Torah. And he starts by saying that it used to be in Europe, girls didn't have yeshivos, the girls' schools. The mother would teach the girls midos, emuna, yira, halacha. But because that tradition has been severed, it's necessary today. So the Moshe for women to have yeshivos, to have schools where they learn about the Yisodei Amuna and halacha and so forth. But says Rav Moshe on the 3rd line, when Hashem said, Ki lo yisishachach mi pizara, the Torah will not be forgotten. It's not just going on the men, it's going on women also. Without God-fearing, kosher women, you can't anticipate any continuity for Klal Yisrael. And that is why when Hashem offers the Torah to Klal Yisrael, who does he address first? Why? Because Hashem understands that if the women aren't on board, then forget it. You'll have a generation of men who serve God, and that's the end of them by the next generation. So in terms of the Yesod of the Torah, the Akeres Habayis, the Yesod of the Torah, the Yesod of the Jewish home, is the woman. But not everything that's done, excuse the example, in sports. Okay, excuse the mashal. You have a team. They win the championship. They win the World Series. Who comes down to celebrate? Who's celebrating? Like Mishugayim. The players. Is the general man, is the owner going to come out and spray? No, of course, beneath his dignity. Is he any less happy about the stuff? No. Not every single thing that's done publicly means that that's what's valued. Certainly, he's the owner. He's responsible for everything that happened. He made all the decision. So Hashem gave different roles in this world. The public role doesn't mean the more important role. The Akaras Habayis, the Yisoid, the Kaisaim Ala Beis Yaakov is just as important, and that's what we learn in the beginning of Parsha. Kedoshim Tiyu Melamed Sheparsha Zu Memar Bahakel. Everyone has to know. Kedoshim Tiyu is for everybody.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.